And welcome, welcome, welcome. This is Peter Winick. I'm the founder and CEO of Thought Leadership Leverage, and you're joining us today on the podcast, Leveraging Thought Leadership. And today, my guest is Jackie Stavros. Jackie's interesting. She's an academic, professor at Lawrence Technical University in Michigan. She's a multi-time author, I should say. But her and I were just talking a little bit earlier. She's got a brand new book, Conversations Worth Having, through Berrett-Koehler, which is sort of her crossover play here, which is interesting. We'll talk about that. She's been a professor for a long time. Welcome aboard. Thanks for joining us today, Jackie.
Good morning, and thank you, Peter.
Great. So let's just dive right in. Why don't tell me where you are, and then sort of the impact of the book and where that's taking you right now.
Sure. So the latest book that I've co-authored with Sherry Torres, it's Conversations Worth Having about using appreciative inquiry to feel productive and meaningful engagement, is based on probably 20 to 25 years worth of research and teaching and writing and consulting using appreciative inquiry. Appreciative inquiry is probably what I would believe is the most effective and widely used approaches for fostering change, positive change at any level of the self, you and me, the team, the industry, an organization.
Great. So let me ask you this, because where you are is really, really interesting in terms of you've been studying this for a long, long time, right? From through the lens of academia, right? So this isn't just some anecdotal, impulsive, you sort of made up a theory or whatever. There's gravitas underneath that. And you know how to communicate to that audience because you've written, in many academic journals and such. But now you're moving to sort of get this out to a more general, business audience. So what does that entail in terms of changes in your language, changes in your positioning, things that you have to do the same and things that you have to do differently to get the message to resonate to a little bit of a different audience?
Yeah, that's a great question, Peter. So, appreciative inquiry was created by my dissertation chair, which was David L. Cooperator. He's from Case and a group of faculty. And the beginning years when I was a doctorate student was the empirical research and the writings in the academic journals and the business journals and books for business schools and business people. And one of the goals for me and also my co author, Sherry, was how do we get such a profound way of being, appreciative inquiry, into our daily lives so that people are thriving and flourishing and creating environments that work for all?
And does daily mean both personal and professional in that context?
Yes. And just from when we thought of the dedication of the book would be for those in conversation. And Steve Parasante, he's president of Berrett-Koehler Publishers in California. I've been following Berrett-Koehler and their books probably for over a decade now. So it was finding that right publisher at the right time to take us to the right place to be the crossover between like BK business books and BK life books. And that was the journey. And then you asked, how is it different? It's a lot different in the sense that everyday readers don't have time to read. Everyday readers, they need to know the message of your book. They need to have stories, examples. It has to be really grounded in how can I pick it up and start using it now, knowing that at the back of the book, there's the reference list and there's the empirical research behind it for the people who want the scientific research behind what we're writing about.
Which I would suggest is the opposite of writing a good academic piece, where
Yes.
it's really about the science and whether it's readable or not. And I'm being extreme for to make the point. Is not really what you're going to be judged on.
Absolutely correct. And when we sent Berrett-Koehler our proposal for the book, it was actually a book that Sherry Torres and I wrote, Dynamic Relationships, using appreciative inquiry in daily living with the Taoist Institute about 12 years ago. And they said, you are a subject matter expert. You have the research behind it. Would you be willing to write a book that crosses more of, again, BK life, that people would use this in conversations at work, in their community, with their kids and colleagues? And that was the big shift is the manuscript probably changed 70% because it had to be very relatable and very story based and short vignettes.
So let me ask you. I mean, you've been at this for 20, 25 years, pivoting from to that writing style, from your sort of default writing style that you're very good at because you've been published all over. What was that transition like for you personally to be able to ultimately write in a different voice, if that's the right way to put it?
It was life-changing, transforming in the sense that for those who come from the academic world or the empirical research, and there's a way you have to write your research, this was a total flip for both Sherry and I because we had to grab the reader right at the start. And just to give you an example, when you write journal articles or book chapters, they're anywhere from 5 to 10,000 words. We wanted a book that was very affordable to the general public. So our 46,000 word manuscript had to go under 30,000 words to get it at a price point and a point where people could have a quick read and a page count and everything. And it was very different learning to write more in a voice of, like, if you listen to the audio person who did the audio recording for the audio book, she takes on every character, one voice, every character. And that was more amazing to listen to the audio recording than actually reading the book itself. And that's something that your business books typically don't automatically get translated into a product line of.
Yeah, no, that's fascinating. So you mentioned Berrett-Koehler, and they're fascinating. They're great. They've been one of the few publishers over the years that really create a sense of what I would call an author community.
Yes.
But what was it about? And we don't necessarily have to spend the whole show promoting BK, but tell me about the process for you in finding that right publisher, right? Because you've got a spectrum here. You can go self publishing, you can go some of these hybrid models, you can go to a traditional publisher. What were you looking for, and how did you know you found it in BK to make this is a critical decision?
Oh yes, there's so many avenues to publish for people listening. You can self-publish. Amazon has like 15 different platforms if you want to go with Amazon. There's academic publishers. So, and then I worked with small publishing houses. So there's a continuum from self-published to well-respected publishers. So I had my eye on Barrett-Kohler probably a decade ago. And I thought, when I grow up in this publishing realm, someday, because Berrett-Koehler gets about 15, I don't know, they said 1,200 proposals a year, and they only take 20 to 30 books to work with.
But what was it about them that gave you the sense of this is a place I'd like to be a part of?
I knew their mission, which is an environment that works for all. I understood their product line. I had read probably 30, 40 of their books over maybe 50 books over the last 10 years. So I knew this is the publisher that our book would fit into.
Got it.
Yeah, so you've got to do your homework. If you're going to go to a publisher, you have to know their audience, their mission. You really have to understand that publisher so that your proposal can get above all the other proposals they're getting.
Excellent. So you were selecting them years before because you liked the voice, you liked the style, you understood sort of their mission, what they were about. How did you go about connecting with them and making sure it was a fit mutual? Because two parties have to agree that this is good for us, right? So how'd you get them to say I'm in?
Well, I think everything with a publisher is relational. And so where it began to happen is, you can go look at your favorite books and then go look who published them. And so the first thing was going to the Berrett-Koehler website and really understanding what their mission was in their product. And then the second thing is I went to places like the Academy of Management, Association of Training and Development, ATD, and Berrett-Koehler always had a booth there. So it was beginning the relational piece of getting to know the editors. And then every publisher pretty much has a proposal format on their websites. But again, I think it's very relational because when the proposal goes through the system, someone would say, "Hey, we know Jackie Stavros. She's reaching out to us. Let's take a look at this."
As opposed to a stranger sending something to the equivalent of an info at box. So you actually a name, a face, a voice, met her at the ATD conference 2 years or whatever. You already started a conversation without the intent of without pitching to them, right? You just wanted to get to know them.
My kids grew up going to the Berrett-Koehler booth when they would come at ages of 7 and 8. So they know my kids as much as they know me.
That's great. Okay, so I love the relational piece of it because I think sometimes what happens is we get transactional unintentionally. So we get into book mode and then we start pitching, but we realize we don't have any relationships there. So a cold call, transactional pitch is always more difficult in any context
Absolutely.
than developing on a relationship. Okay, so here it is a couple of months after the book has been out. Tell me what sort of what's different? What's changed? What has met your expectations? What's come across your plate that you might not have expected? Good, bad, ugly?
So when you think of books out there today, and this there's if you were to Google how many books come out a year, anywhere from 200,000 to 700,000 books are out there. So as you're writing the book, you're thinking your book is going to just be great and it's going to get up there and it's going to go. It's really a fierce way. You have to, and Peter, you've taught me this. It's about building a brand. It's not about selling a book exactly. And anybody who wants to write a book, unless you even, I think of the Harry Potter book and J.K. Rowling, and she was rejected so many times. And you're going to have to, once your book is out there, you're going to have to get out there and be and brand that book. So I thought the actual launching of the book was more difficult than the actual co-authoring of the book.
So and I've said this before, but it's good to hear it directly from an author. Is that as difficult? And I don't mean to be disrespectful to the process of writing a book. It's incredibly hard. It's nothing compared to the process of launching it, primarily because it's probably outside of your comfort zone and you've never done it before, right? When it comes to writing, you've been writing for 25 years, right? And you know what you want to say and you're passionate about this, but this whole book marketing platform, get my stuff out there, that's where people struggle.
Exactly. And so you have to really be ready to how much time, almost as much time as you committed to writing the book, you're going to have to be committed to getting your book. And it's really about getting the message and being in love with your book and the passion and really building your brand as a thought leader in the to the audience and the message of what your book is.
So give me an example of a positive surprise, something unexpected that happened on the positive side as a result of the book coming out, and maybe something that's been a bit of a disappointment.
Okay, so I would say on the positive side of actually from going to the book to publication, David Cooperwriter, who created Appreciative Inquiry, he wrote the foreword for the book. And that's something that you have to really think
That's a
about,
big deal.
who's going to write your foreword. And when we got the foreword, it was as long as every chapter in the book. And
Ouch.
so the publisher said, you know, what are you going to cut out? That's an automatic, oh, this is too long. But using appreciative inquiry and what it means to look for what's going on right and what's possible, we said, well, could this be the introduction of the book? Because David really read the book, he understood the book, and they're like, well, if he says, yeah, we'll make it the introduction. And it just unrolled. And David said, more people will read the introduction than the foreword of your book. And so that was a big surprise, was having David help write the introduction, and that happened just by chance. So that was a pretty great gift that came out with the book. A disappointment, I don't know if there was so much a disappointment as there was an overwhelming feeling of launch week and everything it took to push that book out there. It was just never done anything like that. I lurked on social media, but now I had to thoughtfully use social media such as Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn to get out the message of the book, but not necessarily publishing the book. Working with Amazon, a bit of a challenge. So the whole launching of the book, that moment that it's your book's birth date, time to come out, that's overwhelming.
Right. I mean, there's so many variables and so many things that have to happen there. So let me ask you one more piece, and this I love. You said in order to make the decision around the forward being really long and converting that into an introduction and all that sort of stuff, you used appreciative inquiry. So I love when a thought leader, when an author and a speaker uses their own processes and methodologies and frameworks to make real life decisions. So to you, that's obvious, but tell me, what were the steps that you used that come from your work to make a real life decision that was actually a really important decision?
When I think back of 25 years, the two pieces of my work, Appreciative Inquiry, which was my research with David Cooperwriter, out of that work came a SOAR framework. It's a framework that I created because of my research, and its operating system is Appreciative Inquiry. So SOAR is about, if you think about Appreciative Inquiry, is looking at everything that is going on right, what you want more of, what you wish to happen. So SOAR was a framing of, let's talk about your strengths, Peter, and your opportunities, and what are your aspirations and results. And it was trying to figure out how to package it in a way that the most important thing that I've learned through 25 years and had the relationships we talked about is everything happens through conversations. Conversations is what we're doing now. It's how we get things done. It's how we connect with the others. It takes a lot of time to think, what are your readers up against? They pick up a book because they either want to know how to do something and what they're up against. So you really have to know your craft. your work and how you've done that, and you just have to have the patience to, if you're going to write a book, to really get it focused as, what's this book about and why should anybody read it? And you have to think about your audience.
Got it. Love it. So out there right now is someone that looks or is experiencing what you've experienced, but it's 3 years earlier for them, right? They're starting that process, starting the journey. What would you advise them to do or not do?
I think two things that I would advise them to do. Again, I'm going back on this philosophy of appreciative inquiry. Go find your favorite two or three authors, your favorite two or three books that you love. Read them for enjoyment and deconstruct the book. What was it about that book that you liked? And you thought, wow, if I could write a book like that. So that's the first thing.
So, but that what you like, you might not be conscious of it when you're reading a book. You just say, "I enjoyed it," but you have to drill down and go, "What did you enjoy about it? Oh, was it the style? Was it the narrative? Was it the framework? Right? Like, right? Because that can mean a lot of things. Could be the tone, could be examples, illustrations, etc."
So the book that I really liked, it was in 2016 I read a book called The Outward Mindset, and I it was an airplane book, but they wrote The Anatomy of Peace, and they wrote a few other good books that I really liked. And I read the book on a flight from Detroit to Costa Rica because it was a great book. And then I sat in Costa Rica and deconstructed how it started with a powerful story, how I really looked at why I enjoyed this book so much. And if I could write a book, I would want to write a book with that style.
I've never heard that before, but it's brilliant because it's sort of taking an engineer's mindset to how did that
Yeah.
work, right? Let's get under the hood and see where the cogs are, but you're doing that with a book. I think that's brilliant. Thank you for that. And anything else you would share or suggest?
All publishers, even if you go on Amazon's and you try to self-publish and you're going to get someone to take it on, you have to have an outline, and all the requests for proposals are 70% the same. And not only do you need to really the proposal, you either start the proposal and start working on the manuscript. I've always started with the manuscript in a draft format, and then the proposal makes you tighten your manuscript and go back and forth. So I would tell people to when you're going to a publisher, I believe you should have at least 40 to 50%, if not more, of your book drafted, because you're going to need that to be able to write the proposal. So it's a very iterative process.
And they're busy. I mean, part of that process with the publisher is how easy are you going to be to work with. And if you come to them a disorganized mess, you don't have your thoughts together, it's sort of haphazard. They've got 100 other proposals on their desk, and part of what they're looking for, obviously, besides great content, is can I work with this person for the next year and a half? Are they going to make me crazy? Are they going to get it done?
Exactly what you said is Berrett-Koehler. It's more about they pick their authors to make sure they're people they can work with and work well with. Because once you get the contract, it moves fast. Nobody pays you to write. So you got to really love what you're writing, and the passion and the time it takes.
Well, great. You shared so much with us. Great stuff today. Really enjoyed the conversation, and I think we've got some new information for people, which is great. How do folks find you and reach you and get in touch with you? And what should they be getting in touch with you for, other than feedback on the book and such? But what's the perfect type of person that should be reaching out to you, and how do they find you?
I would say your audience can reach out in three ways. And the first way would be if they're interested in learning about appreciative inquiry and strength-based positive approaches to change, please have them contact me. If they're interested in the author's journey, the book journey, even if they're an experienced author, why do you move from self-publishing to a small nonprofit to a for-profit to a Wiley and then to a Berrett-Koehler? It's kind of like the continuum of the publishing industry. They have a continuum just like the healthcare does. And the third is the best way to reach me is they can reach me at my Stavros at ltu.edu. That's the academic. Or they can go to, I have the book's email, which is Jackie at all one word conversations with an S worth having .today.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate the time you spent and the candor and the insight and good stuff today. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Peter.
To learn more about Thought Leadership Leverage, please visit our website at thoughtleadershipleverage.com. To reach me directly, feel free to email me at peter@thoughtleadershipleverage.com. And please subscribe to Leveraging Thought Leadership on iTunes or your favorite podcast app to get your weekly episode automatically.